In this year's NFL draft, there's a possibility that the first safety in 15 years could crack the top five. Today, we're going to be talking about Ohio State safety Caleb Downs. As of late, he's been mocked as high as number five to the Giants, and if he's taken there, he'd be the first safety to go in the top five since Eric Berry in 2010. In recent years, we've started to see the rise of highly talented safeties being used as chess pieces to write games. Guys like Kyle Hamilton and Derwin James have been at the forefront of this movement, and Downs is the latest beneficiary of this trend. In his historic collegiate career, Downs started off hot as a freshman at Alabama under Nick Saban. He had over 100 tackles, becoming the first ever freshman to lead an Alabama defense in the metric, and at the end of the season was crowned the Freshman of the Year, along with first team All SEC honors. After 2023, he entered the portal where he ended up at Ohio State and continued his dominance. He combined for 150 tackles and 4 picks, earning unanimous All American nods both years with the Lot Impact Trophy and Thorpe Award in 2025. Across national media, the consensus seems to be that Downs is without a doubt the best defensive player in this draft class, and some are even crowning him the best safety they've ever scouted. While I disagree with the latter evaluation, he remains an elite talent and projects as an immediate impact starter from day one. Downs is a hard-nosed safety that plays with an old-school feel to his game, with the ability to process and communicate coverages and checks at an elite level. An underrated aspect of his collegiate career that doesn't really get discussed enough is that he played in three completely different and complex defensive schemes. Under Nick Saban, the defense was built out of a traditional 4-2-5 structure with his patented Rippley's match principles. On any given snap, Caleb could align at free safety, strong safety, even rotate down into the slot. With Jim Knowles, the structure shifted to the opposite end of the spectrum. Knowles mixed in a variety of exotic looks, and we saw him maximize Downs' versatility within the three high safety package. Then under Matt Patricia in his last year, the system blended elements of both approaches. Caleb was often deployed as almost a third linebacker while still being moved around to keep the defense flexible and its best playmaker around the football. He consistently adapted to every role he was asked to play and performed at a high level in all of them. I've always believed that when scouting defensive backs, in general, true impact players have 2 to 3 defining traits on film that separate them from the rest of the pack, a true superpower. And for Caleb Downs, that superpower is his impact near the box. He's the elite run defender, and from day one, wherever he's selected, he'll step in as that defense's enforcer. Caleb's role evolved over his 3 years in college, but one thing remained constant. Coaches wanted him around the football. That's where he was at his best. Whether he was rotating down from depth or lined in the box pre-snap, Downs consistently showcased elite instincts in the run game. He diagnoses quickly, fits gaps with confidence, and he never shies away from contact with running backs. He excels at folding in late as the cutback defender, closing space and finishing tackles. When he sees an opening, he's very decisive in shooting the gaps and making plays behind the line of scrimmage. And when he arrives, he finishes. His pursuit angles are outstanding, allowing him to track down ball carriers sideline to sideline. He brings physicality as well, delivering punishing hits when the opportunity presents itself. On top of that, he adds real value as a blitzer. When sent off the edge, he times it well, accelerates through contact, and he's shown the ability to rack up tackles for loss. Simply put, teams need to keep him near the ball, and he's going to make plays. In addition to his elite run defense, another core pillar of Caleb Downs' game is his ability to play man coverage at a high level. Over 3 seasons, he consistently demonstrated the ability to match up against both wide receivers and tight ends. He showed comfort across multiple man coverage techniques, specializing in catch man, while also displaying the ability to play off man and scooch technique from time to time. Downs isn't the biggest guy, but he's super strong and he plays with a great base and catch man technique. He does a great job consistently standing his ground, reestablishing the line of scrimmage, and making contact with receivers, especially bigger tight ends. He may have not had the most ball production, but that was due to him simply not getting targeted much because he could really blanket a wide receiver. Downs also has great hips, so he can speed trend if he gets out of phase or just redirect if needed against any route. He may not have the top end speed you want to see out of a guy that plays man in the slot to run with 4-3 receivers, but he has really good hips and plays with good technique, so he can guard most tight ends with his physicality and match up against 80 to 90% of slot receivers in the NFL. A real testament to this facet of his game was in 2023 when he matched up against future top 5 pick and Malik Neighbors one-on-one in the slot where he held his own. What separates Caleb is his ability to be able to play with good leverage, which is going to make him a real asset when he enters the NFL. Him being able to play man as a safety just creates more value as a chess piece for his future defensive coordinator. With that being said, if a team truly wants to maximize the talent of Caleb Downs, I don't believe he projects as a traditional safety at the next level. When looking at the recent safeties he's being compared to in terms of NFL impact, Downs simply doesn't possess the same physical profile to give you value as a true box defender. Players like Derwin James, Kyle Hamilton, and even Nick Emmanwori this past year are all 6'3" or taller, and they hover around 215 to 225 pounds. They each bring rare size lathe combinations that allow them to consistently stack, shed, and survive against climbing offensive linemen. Downs simply doesn't have that build, and he isn't a 4-3 caliber athlete who overwhelms you with elite range or burst. He's been highly productive despite those limitations, but projecting him into the NFL and expecting this scheme to consistently protect them from second level contact, like certain three high structures do, is a very risky bet. You can't rely on a college only system to be your meal ticket in the NFL. Yes, Downs can align at true safety, but we haven't seen extensive high level tape of him operating as a full time post defender. His ball production has been modest at best, and the majority of his true center field reps came as a freshman at Alabama. If we're projecting him strictly off that body of work, it's difficult to even justify a top 20 evaluation based solely on that tape. To truly maximize his skill set and warrant a top 10 selection, even people talking top 5, Caleb Downs should be evaluated as a big nickel. In a defense that bases out of a 4-2-5, he profiles as a full-time nickel defender with hybrid responsibilities. In 4-3 or 3-4 structures, he could function as the primary sub-package nickel while maintaining that flexibility to rotate to safety when they need him to. On third down, that's where his versatility becomes most valuable, aligning him as a dime backer, a matchup piece, or just a movable chess piece all around the stress protections and coverage rules. Downs isn't going to be the savior to your defense. He's not the kind of prospect you just drop into an abysmal unit and expect him to transform it overnight, and that's not a knock on his talent. The safety position in itself is typically a force multiplier for an already functional defense. The position is evolving today with more players taking on specialized roles. In 2025, especially, we've seen the nickel defender become one of the most important pieces to a team. Players like Jalen Petrie, Cooper DeJean, and Upton Stout made significant impacts this season as strictly nickel defenders on the NFL's best defenses. And Caleb Downs has the instincts, processing speed, and football intelligence to redefine how teams scout and value that role at the top of the draft. Now, getting into some NFL comparisons to Downs, the first player that comes to mind is Jalen Petrie of the Houston Texans. Coming out of college, Petrie was a hybrid safety at Baylor, who was the Big 12's Defensive Player of the Year in his final season. We saw him play exclusively at true safety as a rookie in 2022, totaling 99 tackles and 5 interceptions, showing a lot of promise at the position. He continued to play safety through the 2023 season as well, and he was switched to nickel in training camp going into 2024. Petrie's aggressive nature and his willingness to hit was a benefit for playing near the box. Paired with his explosiveness and ability to cover tight ends and man coverage with ease, it was a no-brainer for D'Amico Ryans as he started to handcraft this elite unit. Now, when I say Downs should be scouted as a nickel, the prototype for this starts with an elite talent like Petrie. Guys who can play safety, but we get to see their talents maximized near the box full time. Next up is the guy Downs has probably drawn the most comparisons to in Budda Baker of the Arizona Cardinals. Funny enough, the only NFL team that ran a similar scheme to what we saw out of Downs at Ohio State are the Arizona Cardinals. They deploy Budda Baker almost exactly the same as a third safety roaming in the middle of the defense. He excels as a middle runner player like Downs, and while he's not as stout as Caleb, he's a monster in the box and racks up tackles. He's able to come downhill with bad intentions, which is another shared trait with Caleb, but I think Downs' nuance in the slot is what really separates the two. Now, last but definitely not least is a player I haven't seen anyone compare Caleb to, but it almost makes too much sense to me. Talanoa Hufanga of the Denver Broncos. We all remember when he came onto the scene in 2022 and 2023 on the 49ers. An instinctive downhill safety who made plenty of plays on the ball and delivered big hits on all three levels. As he was derailed by injury and made his way into Denver, he's rekindled his career on the elite defense as a leader. In 2025, over a quarter of his snaps came from the slot and in the box combined, and I see similarities in how Caleb Downs plays and how he affects the game. Hufanga is a guy who's helped anchor multiple top 3 defenses in the NFL and is an underrated box safety who's another big hitter similar to Downs' profile as a prospect. Now, as we move on, I want to talk about the best fits for Downs' talents, and I have to clarify what this list means to me. When I explain my personal best fits for the player, I'm working with a combination of draft position and schemes that can use Downs to maximize his potential. So when you think of overzealous takes like him potentially going to the Jets at number 2, this is not that. Now, on to the first team on this list, the New York Football Giants at pick number 5. I personally think this is a great example of a team that has a foundation put in place to add on to Caleb, and he doesn't have to put on a cape to make this unit work. The Giants have 2 safeties already in Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin, who I think are an underrated safety duo in their own right. Nubin as a rookie showed a lot of upside in the 2024 season, and Javon Holland, who started his early years in Miami, is a top 10 to 15 safety in my opinion. Caleb can come in on a newly hired Denard Wilson's defense and be his chess piece. Wilson's defense in 2025 was built upon match quarters principles, which is eerily similar to what we see in Houston. Pair with Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau as pass rushers, we could see Downs plugged into a nickel role where he could have an all-pro upside within 2 seasons. Next up on my list are the Kansas City Chiefs, who hold the number 9 overall pick. Now that they filled their biggest need in their running back with Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker, it's time for them to pivot. This secondary needs a revamp after losing their cornerback tandem to the Rams via trade and free agency. This Chiefs dynasty at its best was ran with Tyrann Matthew at the helm, and I think Steve Spagnuolo has found his next guy with Downs. In a scheme that thrives off disguise and confusion, Caleb can play true safety here, playing a multitude of roles any given play. He provides leadership and stability to an underwhelming back end while the Chiefs continue to retool this roster going to next season. Now, the last team that I think will be a good fit for Downs' talents are the Dallas Cowboys, who pick at number 12. Newly hired defensive coordinator Christian Parker is inheriting a defense that was historically bad in 2025, but he has pieces. The defensive line is all about set, with Quentin Williams in the crew, and former All Pro Duron Bland is still on the outside holding it down. The real question is the rest of the secondary, and I think acquiring Downs would solve more than one problem. For about the last half decade, this Cowboys defense has been known for being soft against the run, and they need a leader with grit and toughness. Downs fits the bill, and Christian Parker is a defensive back guy. He's come out and said he wants to run a multiple defense, and I think Downs and Dallas would be a match made in heaven, with both his safeties being impending free agents. So when it's all said and done, the conversation around Caleb Downs shouldn't be on how high he goes. It should be about how he's used. He's not a traditional post safety, and he's not a one man defense. He's a force multiplier. Put him in the right structure, near the football with a clear role, and you're getting a tone setter, a communicator, and an enforcer from day one. Teams that understand the value of the modern nickel are going to be the teams that get the most out of him.